Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about, are you getting the most out of your CCH Personal Tax software, or as I've entitled it, making the most of personal tax. And first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for taking some time out of your busy day to attend. My name is Lee Bennett, and I'm one of the pre-sales consultants with Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting, and it's my pleasure to be running through this webinar today. On screen, you can see a picture of myself with my email address. If you want to send me an email after the webinar with any questions that you may have that we don't get covered today, please feel free to do so. Over the next hour or so, I'll be covering a few topics, all designed to help you manage your tax return process so that when the really busy period is upon us, you can save some minutes or a few minutes per return here and there, and maybe find some time to start planning for next year. For each topic covered, I'll have a couple of intro slides, and then we'll take a look at how it can be used in personal tax itself. There'll also be a few questions from time to time for you to answer on screen too, to keep the session a bit interactive, so please look out for these. And after each demonstration, I'll pause to field a few questions. You can ask these by typing into the question box in the GoToWebinar controls on your screen. Any questions I don't answer, if time doesn't allow, I will answer by email after the webinar has concluded. So starting with topic number 1, progress tracking and tracking your tax returns, or as we call it, workflow. And we'll start here with just a quick question. For each question, I'll give about 20 or 30 seconds or so for you to make your selection, after which I'll share the results with you so you can also see what your fellow attendees are using. So, question number 1. How do you currently track the progress of your tax returns? Okay, I'll just give a few more seconds for anyone who hasn't voted yet. And I'll just close the poll there. And let's have a look at the results. So probably not unsurprisingly, Excel spreadsheets is obviously the most common one there. There's 18% of you using legacy tax workflow, and it's good to see 33% are already using the CCH Central Workflow. So that's actually very good to see. Thank you for that. So let's talk about exactly what CCH Central Workflow is. It is the functionality in actually CCH Central, which allows you to manage, monitor, and progress your practices deadlines, not just tax deadlines that we're going to be looking at today, but any deadlines, any process that you want to manage within your practice, you can set up a workflow to show that progress. And the benefit that we see of using Central Workflow, as opposed to the other methods mentioned on the previous screen, first of all, automation. One of the first points to talk about with Workflow is automation. Workflow will automate the delivery of the tasks to the right person at the right time, using rules that you can build within the template. Not only that, but the system is also able to automate certain actions, such as filing the tax return with HMRC, or taking information from the accounts production software. If you use CCH Accounts Production, the information on there can be made available automatically to personal tax. So rather than the user having to click 4 or 5 times and remember to click 4 or 5 times to take out an action, Workflow can enable you to make that happen automatically. Integration is another benefit. You can complete a task from the home page, which we'll look at, or from within inside the tax return itself. So again, the user is not having to constantly flick between different screens or in fact different applications. And you can link workflows together and make them dependent on each other. So for example, if you were to link the personal tax and accounts production workflows together, you can stop a user completing the step in personal tax unless the accounts have reached a desired milestone themselves. So within Central and within Personal Tax, we've provided you with 2 or 3 possible workflow templates that you might want to look at to help you get started. 2 of which I'm just going to show on the screen graphically. So here's a very simple linear workflow, probably one of the simplest workflows that you can get. Basically, it's just a task that needs to be completed. It's a tick in the box. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, until we get to return reviewed, where it's either pass a review stage or you fail it, in which case, as you can see, it goes back to the data entry stage and then progresses, return to HMRC, can be automated if you want it to, and then we simply mark it as being completed. And you'll just see at the top, I'll just highlight with my mouse, the top row that we have here is where we've, in our templates, said these are the typical people that we would expect to carry out and complete that task. Again, these can be modified and edited if you should so wish to do so. There is an alternative personal tax workflow. As I said, there's 2 or 3 that we do give you within Central. You can see this one has a few more branches, a few more decisions, a few more questions to go through. If you obviously do decide that you want to use this, obviously feel free to go ahead and have a bit of a practice on a few clients just to see which of the 2 workflow templates you may wish to use going forward. You are of course able to create your own template too, though we do recommend that you think about taking consultancy from our professional services team to help you with that task. So that's my bit of an intro to workflow. Let's have a look to see what it looks like in practice. So within Central itself, I'm just currently sitting on a home page. This one I've called Jobs in Progress. Obviously within Central, for those of you maybe don't know, the users can have as many home pages as they need. The practice can have as many home pages as they need. You'll see the one that I'm on at the moment gives us an overview of the full progress that we're making throughout the year for our personal tax workflows. At the moment, you'll see that I've got 48 that are currently running. Obviously, you can see the different icons, or the 2 different icons that I've got shown on here. Ticks if it's been completed, or a cog if it's currently in progress. Down at the bottom of each of the columns, you'll also see a total. So that will show you how many of those particular returns have been marked as being completed, or how many of those milestones have been marked as being completed. And for those of you that do use your Excel spreadsheets to mark this off, you'll see that this isn't too obviously dissimilar from an Excel spreadsheet. You've got your columns, you've got your rows, albeit at the moment I'm showing icons to determine whether it's been completed or not. That is just a preference of myself as a user. There are certain defaults that are set up when we add the workflow homepage, but if I wanted to, if I right click, I could actually choose not to show the icons, and I can show dates. That's probably what you would see in Excel if you are using that. So the dates things are completed on, if they're green, or if they're red, they were completed but overdue. And again, if I right click, you can actually show the employee name. So this would be the person who has completed the task if it's green. Those that are in blue will show you that it's currently in progress, and it will show you the name of the person that's currently assigned to deal with that particular milestone, that particular task. Or if it's amber, then it's becoming due kind of momentarily. Now, in my database, you'll see that most of the tasks have either been completed or assigned to me. There's three exceptions that I can actually see on the screen at the moment. So the first one, James Riddle, Zoe, needs to mark the tax return as being completed. And we'll see Neil's name here. He needs to review the return for two of our clients, Betty Boo and Matthew Frost. Now, at the moment, this is going to show me the whole population of my tax returns that are currently in progress. So they are active workflows only at the moment. You can see that in the drop-down pick list. If we wanted to change that particular view, it is just a drop-down pick list. So if we wanted to show all the ones that have been completed, or the ones maybe that you've cancelled or terminated, or all of the workflows, it is literally just a case of selecting it from the pick list. Over on the far left-hand side, it does allow you, the system does allow you to filter the view that you're looking at the moment. It could be that you're not interested in every single workflow that you've got going on within your practice, only some of those. And many of you may have already seen this advanced search facility elsewhere. It is something that we have quite common throughout Central, an advanced search on your client list, for example. And it's just a case of building up different layers of filtering depending on what it is that you do want to see. So if I was to choose, for example, client partner, and I'm only interested in those clients that belong to partner Joseph Merrick, I can click apply and the system will go and find all of those, 25 of them in our case. But as I said, I can build up different layers of that. So it could be that I'm not interested in all 25 of them. I want to know specifically where the return reviewed status is equal to in progress. Click apply. So it drills it down, it filters it down now to 11, and I can see for all of Joseph's clients at the moment, I'm the one responsible for reviewing the return. And as with most of the home pages, hopefully that you'll have already set up within Central, you can set these as a default. So if this is the way that I always want to view this particular data, I can set it up so that it is my personal view. It's probably also worth mentioning that the workflow homepage that we're looking at the moment, you can have multiple iterations of them within the system. Depending on your screen size, you can have multiple iterations on the same homepage, or probably more commonly, you'd set up a new view to hold different versions of the workflow. You may have one for the whole practice. You may have one that's maybe departmentalized. You may have one that is then filtered by your clients as either the partner or the manager. Now, a couple of other things to mention on this particular homepage as we're looking at the moment. If you do prefer to view things in Excel, or in fact, if you wanted to print out and circulate, although do people print things these days? I don't know. But if you did want to print it out and circulate it around the practice, you can export the whole workflow homepage out into Excel. You can obviously do further manipulation from there, or you can then print it, circulate it, PDF it, do what you want to do from there. The other thing that kind of escapes people's notice sometimes is that once you've filtered your list, depending on the reason why you filtered it, it may be that you want to mail merge. You might want to send a reminder to those particular clients, probably not on the review return item, but maybe where the information has been requested, the data hasn't yet been received. So either send them a letter or an email directly from the system. We'll have a look at mail merge a little bit later on in a different topic, so I won't cover it specifically here. So this particular homepage has been designed so that I guess the managers, the portfolio holders, the partners can have an overall view and visibility of their particular clients, where they are. But it is also possible to progress the workflow from here. So if one of the things has been assigned to me, in this case, I'm just going to choose Lucy Denton here. If I right click I've got the option here to either pass the review stage or fail the review stage. You'll remember back on that diagram of the workflow where we had that choice of either going back to complete data entry or advancing it to return to HMRC in my case. And it is just literally just a case of selecting that option, and you'll see that it will drop away from the home page. It will go away and process it, and then if I refresh, it will then bring it back again. In fact, I'll probably need to clear my filters to see that. Now, you'll also notice if I bring back my icons that the return to HMRC, I've set it up as an automated step in my case. So without me having to do anything apart from completing the previous step, and I'll choose maybe, I don't know, Matthew Bolt for this one. If I right click and choose that one to be passed, the system will then automatically go along, complete that step. It will also then complete the return to HMRC. So it has now started to send it directly to HMRC. So the only thing I need to do, probably wait for a response and then mark it as being complete. Now, whether I need to have another milestone in there for me to put response received is completely up to me. As I said, you can edit the workflow should you so wish to do so. So, as I said, this particular view allows you as a portfolio holder to see the progress that you're making for the workflows. But the individual users that are responsible for completing the different milestones or the different tasks, they may have a slightly different version or a slightly different homepage set up. So for this one, I'm going to go back to my main dashboard. My main dashboard, top of the list. Again, just a little hint and tip. Obviously, you can edit the descriptions of your home pages as I've done within here, and the system will always open up and log you in with whatever is top of that list. And you'll see on the left-hand side there a list of tasks and appointments, I suppose, technically, of all of the tasks that have been assigned to me. These can either be assigned automatically using workflow. As you can see there, we've included the workflow name. So I've just put accounts production, personal tax, and PT. And we have the name of the client, we have the subject. You'll see that both options are hyperlinked. So it will either take you into the client record or it will take you into the actual task itself. It would also show you due dates. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, the system will automate that due date based on your rules and obviously the delivery of the task to the right person. So these are my personal tasks. If I want to go and complete something, depending on, I suppose, what it is that needs to be completed, I can open up the subject. I could reassign this particular task. I need special permission to do that. It is a task permission within the system. I could reassign it for someone else's responsibility. I can add some notes to the bottom of the screen. Or from here, I can just take an action. In this case, it is to mark it as being completed. So let's do that. And that task will then disappear from my particular list. If there was a following action, the next person would then be notified. Now, I'm also going to choose one of these return reviews. And you'll see in this case, the action, because it's not just a complete, again, it's a pass or fail. So this time we get a drop-down pick list. Same options that we saw on my other homepage when I right-clicked, pass or fail. So you can just go through each of your tasks and obviously updating each one, completing each one, or moving it along that particular process, or in fact reassign it. It is also possible to take certain actions in bulk. So if I wanted to mark some of mine as being all completed, you'll see it down just near the bottom of my particular task list. I've got a series of icons. The first one is to mark these as being complete, which I'll do. And then if I wanted to, and again, if I had the permission to do so, I could reassign those particular tasks to another user. And again, they would be removed from my particular task list and move on. On the right hand side, you'll also see that we do have the ability to have a little pie chart showing you how many clients are at the different milestones for my particular workflow, my personal tax workflow. Again, that can be filtered in a very similar way to what I showed you previously. But you can actually click on these. So if I went to see a list of the 20 where we have, or we need to complete data entry, you'll see it pops open a little screen. Again, the client name and the year ends are hyperlinked. So nice and easy, quick access to those particular records to allow me to then review the tax return. Now, there is another way. Again, I mentioned this in my intro to workflow. You don't necessarily have to keep coming back to your tasks homepage or your other workflow homepage, the first homepage that I was on, to tell the system that you have completed something. The system allows you to do that whilst you're actually completing it. So, for example, if I go to, let's go to Jane. So I'm opening up Jane's record within Central. Again, standard stuff here. And I'm going to go to the tax returns tab and go into the 2017 tax return. And you'll see down at the bottom of the screen, the errors and exceptions panel is split into two different tabs. Obviously, the main errors and exceptions, and then workflows. So this is very much similar to the first homepage that I've shown you. Obviously, it's just showing the one workflow that we've got for this particular client. But again, it shows us the progress that we're making. And if I've completed it and I have then reviewed the return in this case, I can right click and again, mark it as being passed. Again, in this case, the automation kicks in, so the return then goes to HMRC. So the final thing that needs to be done is mark the tax return as being completed. And hopefully, kind of goes without saying, that will then update my task list. So you'll see that task then disappear, and it will also have updated my main jobs in progress from within here as well. Now, actually, one little tip whilst we're here, I'm just noticing where my mouse happened to land on this particular page. You'll see that we do actually show the tax year, and you'll see that I'm actually working on 2016 return for James Riddle and then 2017 for the rest of them. You will see that this is a hyperlink. So if you are using this particular homepage to manage the progress and the process that you're making as an individual user, and you see that you do need to go and do something, we need to go and review the return, you can actually click onto that hyperlink and it will take you directly into the tax return. So it will skip that other bit where it will go into the client and then go to the tax returns tab and then click on 2017. So as many clicks and screens that we can cut out to get you to the right place, obviously it's got to be a good thing. Okay, that's I think all I was going to cover on workflow. Let's go to the next slide. Which is, I've just brought up a little picture there of our support site. So more information, we have produced some videos and user guides. They are available for registered users of support. They are under the What's New Best Kept Secrets area. You'll see this little trail at the top, this little breadcrumb as we call it. So What's New Best Kept Secrets, and then go straight into workflow. And the system will give you some areas that you can go and have a look at. What is it? And there's the picture that I showed as part of my presentation. Things that you need to consider before you get started, how do you get started, and what to do if you wanted to start designing any non-standard, so non-CCH templated workflows. As I said, you can do that. I do strongly recommend that you do take some consultancy for that. Okay, question number 2 that I'm gonna ask you to answer. This is a very simple one. Hopefully I'll get the desired result, the desired answers. Do you feel using CCH Central Workflow, I guess, as opposed to what you're currently using, would be of benefit to your practice? And again, I'll just give 20-25 seconds or so for you to answer that. And I think we're all nearly there, so I'll just close the poll and then let's have a look to see where we are. So, wow, massive, 89% thinks it's going to be of benefit, and it will be of benefit. For those of you that don't currently use it, probably now's the time to start thinking about it. It's probably a bit late in this year's tax season to start implementing it, but probably start by looking at the templates that we have, looking at the design, looking at your process. That's the most important thing. Look at your process, not necessarily the software. The software will take care of itself. It's the process that you need to decide on, that you want to obviously take going forward. Okay, let's have a look to see if we've got any questions coming through. So we've got the first one. Have you any plans to discontinue the old tax workflow? It isn't something that we're planning to do probably in the near future, but as we've seen, there's a massive majority of you that can see the benefits of moving to the new one. So whether we keep them running both in tandem over the next couple of years, we'll probably make a view on that. We'll have to see how many people are still using the old tax legacy workflow. Potentially what's kind of stopping them from moving to the new one, but there shouldn't be anything stopping you. Next question, is it possible to import data from our current Excel spreadsheet into the workflow? Is there a standard template for this? Unfortunately, no, it's not. Just the way that the system is designed, it's not just a case of kind of importing a spreadsheet layout. Each of the columns that I had on my Excel looking homepage, you have to set up different rules for it. So you need to set up the type of person that's going to be responsible for completing that task, and the date rules. When do you want the deadline to kick in? Is it by virtue of completing the previous step, for example, or is it something more related to either the beginning or the end of the tax year, for example? So no, unfortunately, there isn't a spreadsheet import. What else have we got? So how do you build in a step for the workflow to automatically update when you file the tax return? So once submitted to the HMRC, the workflow step return submitted to HMRC is automatically updated. Well, we kind of do it the other way around. So rather than updating workflow by carrying out the action of submitting it to HMRC, we submit it to HMRC by completing the workflow. So it is just a different type of step in the design of the workflow. It's probably today is not the session to go into the designer mode of workflow. But as I said, there are some videos and a user guide on our support sites which will guide you through that particular area. Let's see if there's any more. Someone said that the sound has gone. We are unable to hear you. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't think anyone else is reporting any problems. If you are, please either enter it as a chat message or one of the questions. I'm not hearing that there are any problems anywhere. It is actually possible, though, on that note, it is actually possible to switch between using the telephone as a conference mechanism or using the internet, you can just switch between the two. So if you are having issues hearing any sound, it might be something to look at from that point of view. So the next topic that I wanted to cover is the return review module. Now, I'm sure you all have a process in place to review the tax return. That hopefully goes without saying. Whether that's reviewing on the screen and you have two tabs open showing this year against last year, whether it's on the tax return, as I've produced two tax returns here, the tax calculations, obviously you can have those being displayed simultaneously within personal tax, and obviously the backing schedules, or whether you literally do print things out and go through them using paper. Obviously you're probably looking for variances, missing information, or to validate new sources, to make sure there's no obvious things that HMRC may pick up on. Return review allows you to perform that view on one screen, so you're not flicking between different tabs, different screens, or obviously shuffling paper around. Which actually brings me on to question number 3. Again, quite a simple one. How many of you, or are you aware of the return review module? So 3 possible answers that I could come up with here. Yes, and we currently use it. I am aware of it, we're aware of it, but we don't use it. Or no, I didn't know about it at all. So I'm just going to close that poll and share with you the results. So the majority don't know about return review module at all. Okay, so that obviously leads me nicely on. So let's go and have a look at it. So return review, I'm going to go into my client record here. I'm going to use Jack Smith in this case, and again I'm just going to go directly into the tax return. I don't need to go through the central client record, and you'll see right at the top even on my ribbon, under my tasks ribbon, we have the return review option. So we've tried to make it kind of almost as in your face as we can. It's kind of front and center along with everything you're doing, but I do obviously realize that if your main requirement is to produce a tax return and do data entry, then there's possibly quite a few different options upon the ribbon that probably pass you by. We'll be looking at another one later, tax return bundle, for example. People don't necessarily know about that either. So if I click into return review, it's going to give me a little message saying at the moment, not all data entry sources are marked complete for the current tax year. In actual fact, you'll see that none of my sources are currently marked as being complete. We can see these using the icons down the left-hand side on my filtered data entry menu. Do you wish to continue with the review report? Yes, I do. And the next screen it will take me to, as I said, it's a single screen. It's going to show me all of the sources of income for this particular client, really down to the transaction level. Each individual source will get listed out. You'll see that I've only got a few, particularly on this particular screen. But we'll see the source. It will also identify the reason why it's been highlighted on this particular screen. Now, where it says various, you'll see down at the bottom of the screen a bit more information about that particular source. So the review point has been raised for the following reason. It's exceeded a variance and the data is incomplete. So it's going to highlight those in any case. But you'll see it has exceeded a variance. What you can do if you want to, and you can set this at system level, but I'll show you at client level, you can set certain variance limits. So if you expect it to be within 10% or 15% of, I've got a couple of mine, or monetary, less than £10 or £1,000, you can see there, It could be, you know what, I'm not really that bothered by that particular variance. Obviously, things are going to go up and down. You don't necessarily want a big long list of everything. You can, as I've done, just keep those variance limits quite low. And the system will show you, obviously, the values this year against last year with the monetary variance and the percentage variance. And then over on the far right, you'll see similar tick boxes to the ones that we see on the main data entry screens within Personal Tax. Has this been already marked as being complete? Is it an estimated value? Has it already been marked as being reviewed and therefore locked for data entry? Or are there any notes that appear within data entry? Now, in fact, you can add your own notes within here as well, specific review notes. So if I just give that a click, I'm looking at the moment that there's a variance of £56,000, and it may be that I just want to put some kind of narrative in there as to the reason why I've gone and investigated. Who's this? Jack. Jack had a pay rise and promotion. So at least it looks as if we've gone away, we've done something, we've investigated why there is a difference, and we show that with an R on the right hand side within the notes field, and down at the bottom of the screen you'll see that the narrative then gets updated. Jack had a pay rise and a promotion, and we know who did it, who typed that note, and at what time. You'll also notice that where we are showing the numbers, these are all hyperlinked. So if we do have a particular query, rather than flicking in and out of different screens, again, going to the employment pages, drilling down, we can just click on those hyperlinks, and it will take me down to the underlying data entry screen. If I need to update it, if there was a mistake and need to refresh the information, again, I can do so straight from here. There is a viewable or printable report within here as well. So view report, it's a standard personal tax type report. So obviously I can print it, I can export it to PDF, or send it as an email attachment to somebody, again, either I suppose internally within the practice. I can save it into document management maybe, or send it to my client to show them that we have reviewed the tax return. And then down at the bottom of the screen, not only does return review allow you to obviously view and look at variances this year to last year, but it also allows you to mark the whole of the tax return as being now reviewed. And this will actually do two things automatically. You'll notice at the moment that the status of my tax return is data entry in progress. If I just mark it as being reviewed, that status will then be updated. So tax return is reviewed. I can report on that if I want to, or in fact there is a separate homepage control which will allow me to see that. And you'll also notice now down the right hand side, all of my sources have now been marked as being completed. They've all been marked as being reviewed and therefore locked. So if I just come out of this particular screen and go back to my main data entry screen, you'll see the padlock has been applied. They're all turned green, usual personal tax type stuff here. If for whatever reason I do need to make an adjustment, even after it's been reviewed, I can, but I need to unlock this particular source. And obviously I would need special permission, task permissions within Central, within Personal Tax, to allow me to do that. So that is the return review module. So question number 4, and again, hopefully it'll be a simple one. Do you feel using return review would be of benefit to your tax return completion process? Okay, let's just close that one. And share the results. And again, another overwhelming majority there. Yes, there would be a benefit, and hopefully that would be quite clear to see the reasons why there would be a benefit to using return review, as opposed to, didn't really go into much detail about it, but the different processes of reviewing, whether, as I said, it's on screen or whether it is on paper. Okay, so let's have a look to see if we've had any specific questions. On this one, just one, I think. The return review icon is grayed out. Is this a permission thing? It may be, but it's probably worth mentioning the return review is actually a separate license module within Personal Tax. So it could be that you're not actually licensed to use it. If you're unsure whether you're licensed or whether it is a task permission, maybe probably the quickest thing is to contact whoever looks after your system to see if you are licensed, or contact your account manager at Wolters Kluwer to see if you are licensed for it. So having completed the tax return and reviewed it, we're nearly ready to send it to the client for their approval. And we have something called the tax return bundle, which will, we feel, really help with this process. Now, it's probably very unlikely that when you send a tax return to the client, the only thing that you send them is the tax return itself. You may include backing schedules or the tax computation, but you'll probably also be sending a covering letter as well, which someone's probably drafting out, needs to go to review, probably needs to be typed up and edited, all those kind of things. The tax return bundle is designed to automate that process by building a single PDF of all of those or some of those elements, as well as the covering letter itself. The system can and will automate the covering letter based on the actual content of the tax return itself. So you can build rules into Personal Tax which are used to control which paragraphs are going to be produced and when. Of course, you can still personalize the actual letter for your clients if you need to. It's not that strict, but the more standardized you can make the letter, obviously the more time, the more efficiencies, more efficiency gains that you'll make. Which again leads me on to question number 5. You're probably getting a bit familiar with these questions now. Are you aware of the tax return bundle? Okay, so I'll just stop the poll there. And share the results. So only 13% of respondents currently use it, and evenly split between you know about it but don't use it, or you don't know about it at all. So again, let's go and have a look, see what it does actually do. So I'm going to stay in Jack Smith as we're here already for 2017. I've reviewed his tax return, let's say, and again at the top of the screen, I'm going to go to my tax return bundle option. And just to talk about what we're looking at the moment. So the different elements that I mentioned before, the actual tax return, you can see you can tick various boxes, which of those pages you want to have included. Do you want to include the backing schedules for each of the sources? do you want to also include a copy of the tax computation? Over on the right hand side, the system does also allow you to add in any other attachments. So if there's something that you always wanted to appear within here, a predefined, it would have to be a PDF. You can select it from if there was anything on my screen, you could, or if there was anything else that you wanted to attach, you can just go and browse for it kind of at point that you want to send it. And then at the top of the screen, this is where we've got the automation of the letter. So do I want the letter to be included in the bundle? Just a simple tick in the box. Do I want to output it to Word? So if you do want to make any amendments, there's actually two ways to make amendments to the paragraphs that we're seeing. You can output the whole thing out into Word if you prefer typing things obviously in a word processor, a proper word processor. Or if we click on letter paragraphs, you'll see in my case, the system's identified 3 paragraphs that the system's going to include for this particular client. So the first paragraph, my intro paragraph, I have pleasure in enclosing your, and then you'll see down at the bottom of the screen, we include a mail merge field, so it knows which tax return year that we're producing the return for. So I have in pleasure in enclosing your 2016-17 tax return for your perusal and approval to summarize the key facts. In my case, the rules that I've built within the system is that that paragraph will always appear no matter what is in the content of the actual tax return. The second paragraph is a bullet point, your total tax due for the year is, and then you'll see again a little mail merge field, 56,000, what was that, 56,642 pounds. And again, in my case, the system knows that there is total tax due, so it selects that particular paragraph and that particular bullet point. If there was a refund, then the wording would slightly change. And if there was no tax, obviously the wording would change again. And then the third one that I've got, employment income. I just want to check that you are still employed at, and then it mail merges in the employer's name and that you earned, and then again mail merge in the gross pay from this employment. And again, hopefully goes without saying, I only want that paragraph to appear if any of my clients do have employment income. In this case, this particular guy does. Now you can set up multiple templates within the system. You don't have to necessarily come up with one particular design of your bundle that's going to suit every single one of your clients. You can set up as many templates as you want to. And then all you need to do is create bundle. Now I'm not actually going to hit that button. What I'm going to do instead is send this particular tax return directly to my client for their approval via our client portal. So when I hit the button, the system will go away. It's going to look to see what selections I've made, and it will go and build those up into the bundle. It's going to look to see what my letter should say. It's going to look at the content of the tax return, look at all obviously the mail merge fields, create it as a single PDF, and automatically attach it to a new message. Now, for those of you that don't currently use CCH Portal, I'll quick run through this. You'll see that it is kind of based loosely on a very simple email message. So the system needs to know who the message is coming from. Obviously, it's coming from me. I'm a portal user, and obviously I'm currently logged in. It needs to know who to send the message to. It's sending it to Jack Smith. And it can only send it to Jack Smith because I'm in already his client record, I'm in his tax return. I can't accidentally send the wrong tax return to the wrong client. It will need a subject and it will need a message, kind of like an email. But we do supply, and you can create your own templates. Again, that they can have mail merge fields on them. So what am I sending my client? I'm sending him a personal tax return. So I'm just going to click and set insert. And there's the message that I'm going to send. Now, because I'm sending an attachment, a document, in this case, obviously the tax return, I want my client to approve, or not, as the case may be, that particular tax return, and I want that to be recorded automatically within the system, so electronic approval. Down at the bottom of the screen, it does allow me to browse to additional documents if I want to also send these along with the tax return, either browse to my C drive, my hard drive, my network drive, or if you are a document management user and the document is already in the document center within the client, you can just go and pick it from here. I'm just going to send the tax return and click send. So what the system will have done, if I just close out of this particular screen, and I do need to go into the client record in here now to show you the next bit, but I'm going to click on, you'll see over on the left hand side, the name of the client is hyperlinked. So again, little hint and tip maybe for those of you that aren't aware, if you click the client name here, that will then open the main central client record. So what the system will have done is taken a copy of that message. So there it is, along with the actual attachment, the tax return. I can go and have a look at the status of that particular tax return by clicking on the Documents button up at the top of my screen, and you'll see we placed it into the 2017 tax folder, and currently it is pending. The approval status is pending. The client, Jack Smith, hasn't done anything with that particular document as yet. Those of you that perhaps use our document management system, a copy of the message and a copy of the attachment, the tax return, will be placed within the document center, and again from within here you'll be able to see the approval status. Now there are reports that you can also run. Obviously if you get into kind of December, January and you need to monitor the approval status of a number of tax returns, you don't want to be going in to each of your clients' records, as I'm doing, into the document center or into the message center to see the approval status. We have provided you with a report. It's actually a smart report, which will allow you to report across all of the documents that have been sent via portal. So very quickly, what happens at the client's end? So I'm going to assume the role now of Jack. So I'm going to log into Jack's Gmail account. Jack is going to be sent a new email. You have a new message on your name of practice portal, so Bennett Rowe & Co in my case. Very generic message. It doesn't say anything about here is your tax return, but it does provide you with a link to view the message. Jack would need to log on, so jack.lbsmith, CCH, and we click log on. Jack will be presented with a dashboard showing the messages that have been sent, the documents that have been sent, and in this case there is a document to approve. If we have a look at that message, we can see, Jack can see that there is an attachment to it, and he can either approve or reject that attachment, that tax return in our case, simply by ticking the box and pressing one of those buttons. But actually what you can do, you can force Jack in this case to view the document, or at least download it. We obviously can't force him to read it, but we do know whether or not he's clicked the link to actually download it. And if I open it up, you'll see that tax return bundle where we started off is a 28-page PDF in my case, and there's my covering letter, all nice and neatly formatted with those 3 paragraphs that I mentioned that we saw earlier. And the rest of it is just going to be the actual tax return, backing schedules, tax computation. Having now opened it up and read it, Jack can now tick the box and can now either approve or reject. And I will approve it in this case. If a client does reject it, they do need to specify a reason why they reject as well. They can't just tick the box. Jack will have to put in his password in again, just to make sure he's the correct owner of the portal, the correct person that should be approving that particular document. Clicks approve, and that message will effectively then come back into Central. That'll probably take a couple of minutes, so we'll come back to this particular screen in a little while. Okay, so just to finish off that particular topic, in fact, I've got two questions to ask within here. The final two questions, indeed, you may be glad to hear. The first one, to do with the tax return bundle itself, do you feel using the tax return bundle would be of benefit to your tax return completion process? Okay, I'll just close that poll, see the results. Okay, interestingly, 47% don't feel that there would be a benefit. It's probably worth me mentioning that some of our clients that do use the tax return bundle have reported kind of time savings in that process of around about 15 to 20 minutes per return, because you're cutting out all the to and the froing and the checking of the letter before it then gets sent out. And actually, it may be, we obviously recognise that the tax return bundle may not suit 100% of your client base, but even if you only used it for maybe, I don't know, 50% of your clients, there would still be, hopefully, an element of time savings. There would still be a benefit for you to use that. Okay, and then I guess a slightly supplementary question, more to do with the portal this time. How do you currently send tax returns to your clients for approval? And in this one, you can actually select more than one answer. Again, obviously, we recognise that not everybody may be ready to use something like a portal, and some of your clients may not even have email. Okay, just a few more seconds on that one, and I'll close and then just share the results. Okay, so wow, 13%, only 13% use our portal, 9% use some other document portal. But I guess the interesting ones at the moment are the ones that send tax returns in the post or via email. Hopefully, I don't know, those numbers may change with the new tax season. Obviously, next May, when GDPR kicks into place, I think there will be more onus on using something more secure than obviously post. So it's not very secure at all, or email, by virtue of using the internet, not necessarily that secure unless obviously you encrypt everything. But there's a kind of probably a big overhead to that from an administration point of view. So interesting stuff. Okay. And I don't think, let me do then question 6, question 7. So again, I've just pulled up a little screenshot from our support site. Again, more information, videos and user guides are available under best kept secrets for the tax return bundle. There's also a series of videos, I think there's 6 or 7 videos that cover portal as well. I can only see at the moment one question on the tax return bundle. Is the return bundle a standard feature within personal tax, or is it chargeable like return review? It is actually standard. Everyone has the ability to start using it. If you want to use the covering letter, the automation of the covering letter, then it may take a bit of time just to set up the rules and the paragraphs. But once that's done, as I said, our clients are reporting anywhere between 15 20 minutes per return on that. So it's worth spending a bit of time up front just designing, if you want to use it, what that covering letter is going to look like. And then the last topic that I wanted to talk through is reporting. So I'm going to be looking at, I'm running a slightly short of time now, but I do want to have a look through this. What can you do with all that data now that you've got it in your tax system? You're not hopefully just going to use it to submit tax returns. Whether you want to run internal reports using the data, or whether you want to explore any kind of marketing activities using the mail merge facilities that I mentioned earlier that CCH already has to offer, you've got all that data now at your fingertips. So quick demonstration of reporting. So up on my little toolbar, I've got the reporting icon or button. It's not an icon, it's a button. If I just click into there, it's going to load up reporting and it's going to show me all of the existing reports that I've got within my system. Split by category, you can see those down the left hand side, a little folder structure. Now, even if you've never gone into reporting before, if you go into it for the first time, you will see some reports in there, and you'll be able to see how many reports are in each category. That's the little number inside the brackets, because you are also able to run any existing smart reports through reporting. So reporting allows you to build two different types of reports, and I'll show you both of these very quickly this morning. Either a grid, so just a straightforward list of clients that match your criteria with the fields that you've chosen, or a pivot table, which is really good for comparing data, obviously in tax's point of view, over tax years. And there's two different methods that you can actually use to create these reports. You can either just click on either one of these icons that I'm showing you at the top of the screen, or there is actually a wizard that will guide you through the process. Now, personally, I prefer using the wizard if I'm creating a pivot table. If you're creating just a list, it may actually be quicker just to create it from the button rather than the wizard. So I'll do both methods. So the first one, report wizard, there's only a couple of stages to go through, but name, I'm going to call this tax due, if I can spell, comparison. And this is going to be a pivot table. And I'm going to put it into the category personal tax and click next. The next tab, the next section, will show you all of the available fields that you can go and choose and pick, in this case to be on my pivot table. The number of different folders, the number of different fields that you will see will be dependent on the products that you're currently licensed for. So if you don't see necessarily all of the items that I've got, there's nothing wrong. It may just be that you don't have that particular module from us. Now, when we're designing a pivot table, there would be normally a minimum of 3 particular fields that you would need. So I'm going to have the name of the client, which we'll find under the central folder. And then we're going to go to personal tax, and I'm going to choose the tax year. And then if I go down a bit further, I'm going to take something from the tax computations. I'm going to be choosing tax due or overpaid. And you'll see as I'm ticking each of these, they appear on the right-hand side. So the next thing I need to do is then determine which pivot area is each field going to be displayed in. So these are the 3, as I said, in the minimum areas. So the first one, what the name or where the name is going to appear, that's going to appear as a row. The tax year is going to appear as a column, and the tax due or overpaid is going to appear in the data area. And that's all I need to do. Next section allows me, if I want to at this point, to filter the results, filter the data. Again, it will use a similar filtering that we saw earlier when we were looking at workflow. I'm just going to skip that for now. And it will then show you the layout. So tax due, name, tax year. If I wanted to, I could move these around if I if I needed to, if I wanted to, if I picked the incorrect ones under the fields tab, I could. And then finally, how do I want to visualize this particular report? Well, I'm going to open it up for editing because it's already selected on there, and then click finish. Now, by default, when you run a tax type report, it will run it for the current year that we're in. So it's basically saying none of my clients currently have any tax due or overpaid for the current year. And what I'm going to do is take my start date back to 2010, just refresh, click run, and you'll see that's the report that I'll then get. So from 2010 all the way up to 2017, that's the tax due for all of my clients. Now you will see that it does include those that have 0 in here as well. Now it could be that you want to filter those. So having looked at that particular screen, we can do tax due maybe greater than 0, click apply, exactly the same filtering that we saw earlier, and obviously you'll see a reduced list in my case. That pivot table can be saved, so you'll be saving almost the design of that report. So as things change, you can run it again. You can see obviously more comparisons within there. I won't save this one. And then the second type of report is probably an easier one, really. As I said, it's the create grid. So I'm just going to do this straight from here. Same fields down the left-hand side. So I'm going to choose, I'll choose the name, and I'm also going to choose the partner in this case. And then I'm going to go again down to personal tax, and I'm going to choose pretty much what I did last time actually, tax year and tax due from tax computations. And you'll see as I'm adding the data in, it will then be displayed on the right hand side again. It goes away and looks at just the current year that I'm in, so I haven't really been up to much. So again, I'll take that back a bit, click run, and we'll now get obviously more data. Again, can be filtered to match whatever criteria that you're looking at. Obviously, it doesn't have to be based on the content of the tax computation as I've done it. Most of the sources of income are displayed within here. So whether it's something like something to do with land and property maybe, or income from UK securities, whatever it happens to be, you can then go and report on it. And actually, let me just scroll back up a bit. You can start to combine fields from other products, other modules. So if you are licensed for the likes of accounts production or practice management, and you're interested in seeing the data all on one screen, and use that for filtering, for investigation purposes, whatever it happens to be, you can. And again, that particular design can be saved, which I'm not going to do today. What I am going to do, the very final thing that I'm going to show you, is what you can do with those reports. So I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to do a client search. And rather than me knowing which client I want to go and search for by typing in the client name or the client code, I'm actually going to produce a new search based on a report. It's going to ask me to go and find the report that I want to go and have a look at. So I'm going to go down to some personal tax ones, and I'm actually going to use one that we've given you. So we've designed some reports already within the system. So one's ready for making tax digital. I'm sure you're all well ahead of the game on this, although it's been put back. You probably still need to think about it. So making tax digital, where gross income, I'm going to do between 10 and 85. And again, we can choose the different report parameters, the tax years in this case. Click OK. And it will then display for me, in this case, 6 clients. So it won't show me the results as in the actual numbers. If I wanted to see those, it would be within the reporting module, but it gives me the results, the people that would appear. And I want to then contact those 6 people. I can either do that by sending them en masse a portal message, or in my case, I'm going to send them a mail merge, either a letter or an email. I'm going to send them a letter. Stage 2, which template do you want to use as a basis for your mail merge? Again, we give you a few to start you off with. Nothing stopping you obviously creating your own. They are just normal Word templates. So the one actually that I'm going to send them today is a fee protection type letter. Where do I want to send it to? I'm going to send it to their main address, but these are all the other addresses I have within Central. And who is it going to be coming from? It's going to be signed off. It's going to be coming from the partner of the client. It's going to go to the main contact. And it gives me one further chance to select, deselect, or filter the client that I'm going to send it to. And then how do you want to send it? How do you want to create this Word document? The default is to do a single document with separate pages, so effectively one Word document with 6 pages in my case. Or do I want to actually create 6 Word documents? The benefit of doing this is that you also have the ability to automatically attach a copy of that particular letter, if you have it, to the document center using document management. So I'm just going to call this fee protect. And that's going to go into my client's correspondence file. And then we just click finish. And you'll see down at the bottom of my screen, the system will then create those documents. If I go into one of my client records and into the document center, there's the letter that it's already produced with a preview of it, as you can see. Obviously, document management is not for today, but just some of the other things that you can do using the tax data. Okay, we're pretty much coming up to the end of the webinar. We are slightly over time, so apologies for that. I don't seem to have any questions on that section. As I said, if you do think of any questions after the webinar has ended, feel free to email them in, and I will get back to you. So just really to recap on what we've covered today, we started off with Central Workflow, which allows you to track the progress of completeness of your tax returns. In fact, any process that you want to track, you can. More than just ticking boxes, Workflow can automate certain activities such as submitting the return to HMRC or sending the data from accounts production to personal tax, as I mentioned. We then looked at return review, which allows you to hopefully speedily review the tax return, compare it with last year, spot any variances, deal with those, and also lock the return down in one click rather than on a source by source basis. Tax return bundle produces standard professional output. You can automate the covering letter to save you time. And then we also briefly looked at the portal, allowing you to instantly send the return to your clients for their approval or rejection. And then finally, we just looked at central reporting, which allows you to query your not only your tax database, but your entire central database, obviously depending on which modules you have. And also look at the mail merge facilities that we have. So our time is up. So I'd just like to say thank you for your attention this morning. Again, apologies that we went slightly overdue. It's good to see that so many of you stayed online. I do hope you gained a few tips from this morning's sessions. And I'll leave my email address on screen just for a few moments after the webinar is finished. If you do want to jot it down, if you do need to get in touch with me, feel free to do so. Thank you and good morning.